something to talk about. What was it that you think made the Final Fantasy series such a larger success compared to all other RPG titles?
Well, because it was like
It was different.
computerized D&D, so you didn't have to look through books for 3 hours in order to make a movie.
I think the first one was just really different from everything else that existed at the time. It came out in, what, 87? And like, in 87 you were playing games like Super Mario, which is like, albeit revolutionary, it was revolutionary in its own sense, but it wasn't Final Fantasy. It didn't have a plot, really.
No.
Well, not that the first one did, but...
Yeah, I think the plot really made the difference with 4, 4, 5, and 6 especially. And then of course when 7 came around, it was, it exploded, right?
You might have get closer since you're talking pretty quietly.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, could you speak up?
Yeah, I mean the story. I think the story was a big part of it. Dragon Quest was around for a while, but it didn't really have much of a plot other than let's defeat the Dragon Lord, right? Not to say FF1 had much of a plot, but by the time they got, even 2 had quite a bit, more plot than anything 4 had. And then with 4 and 5 and 6, that really hit its stride. And obviously when 7 came out, it brought in a whole bunch of new people who had never even tried RPGs before. Were amazed by the technology, by the character development they were getting from other games. And I think obviously 7 really gave them the budget they needed to go ahead and move forward with these kind of RPGs. If you look at a lot of other RPG franchises that really rival the budget that goes into a Final Fantasy title. Even Dragon Quest is even though it's so much popular in Japan, it doesn't have that technical aspects behind it, right?
Would you say the popularity of 7 was also partially due to the fact, at least in North America, that it was like for a while the only good game for PlayStation 2?
PlayStation 1.
PlayStation, my god. PlayStation. Duh.
I think we had Crash Bandicoot back then.
Sounds pretty good.
Yes. The good old days.
I think it's a big part of it. It was almost like a perfect storm in terms of, Final Fantasy came out and the PlayStation was just affordable at that point, right? Before that point, it was crazy expensive. I think when it launched at was it $400 or $500, but by that point it was down to something more reasonable. And of course, Square poured so much money into the advertising. You couldn't even turn on TV without seeing an FF7 commercial that just showed the amazing CG graphics, and no one really cared that the character sprites weren't that great.
Okay. Yeah.
Do you think that the alteration in the gameplay during the later Final Fantasy games was an improvement over the old weight turn-based combat system of the early Final Fantasy games?
Are you just referring to the combat gameplay or like the general gameplay?
Like the battle systems.
The battle systems?
Yeah, like the active time battle system versus the turn-based battle system.
I don't think I prefer one over the other, but I think that a change was needed because like the ATB system was getting stale after it started in 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and stopped at 10. So like they had to change something. So like there's nothing wrong with the ATB system, but it was a little refreshing to play like 10s and 12s.
They both have their own pros and cons. Like with the ATB, if you set it to active instead of weight, you can actually it feels more like real time. But then when you have turn based, it's like you can take the time and just look at the boss and be like, "Ha, I'm going to take a shit now." You're gonna be sitting there doing nothing while I'm laughing at you on the toilet.
I love the ATB system, and I like the refinements they've made to it over the years. I also like 10 system a lot. And 13, I love the battle system. I just feel like 12 really stepped away from it, right? I'm not a fan of the battle system in 12. I feel like I'm playing an MMO when I don't want to be playing an MMO.
I found that was the point, though. Like they were catering
Exactly.
to the weapon.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
Final Fantasy, wow.
Yeah, they were using a lot of the code from 11, which they did some neat things with the gambits and stuff, but it's stuff that I didn't really have the patience for.
I find it interesting that you can just press the forward button and just win. If you're the best, if you had good gambits and you had strong characters.
It still takes quite a bit of thinking though to set your game.
Well, to set the game, it's like half an hour of prep before a boss. You just go in there and just leave it. It's like, okay, I'll come back later. That's what I did with Yzmat. I mean, I left the thing on all night and then beat him in the morning. Anybody else auto-killed Yzmat?
After 13, are they going to make a non-linear game? I'm sorry, 13 is wretched for me.
In terms of linearity, don't you think that all the games are pretty linear?
Yeah.
Like, I know that you don't have a world map, but other than that, like, instead of having like a combat-sized field, you have a line, but it's still point A to point B.
You can't power level.
But also in all the games from 1 to 10, you are given a certain amount of freedom to do side quests and try to travel around the world as much as you please, for the most part.
That comes in chapter 13, doesn't it, though, when you're free to roam?
When you're free from the city, yes, but for the most part, when you're city, you're actually restricted.
Yeah.
You're restricted to only just go for the main story quests. You're not necessarily, you cannot necessarily go to basically the building beside it and actually go for a side quest to kill some time.
I think it's hard to argue that FF13 isn't linear, right? I know like 10 is obviously a lot of them are, but 13 is really, I feel like I replayed 13 before, this, and I feel like it's like for the first 25 hours, you don't even have a choice what you want to do. It's, you start the game and you just move forward, right? Even if you wanted to level, they cap your crystarium or whatever, so you can't decide to level, you really move up. And I think the big difference between other games is the removal of towns, right? You can't even stop to talk to people, visit shops aside from through the little menus. So it's not. It really makes it obvious that it's linear as opposed to other games. And I think they know that. I think the reason behind that was that they were dealing with the DS3 for the first time, these next gen systems, and they just wanted to get a good product out there. And so they stripped away the kind of things that would make it feel more open. I think that's why they announced FF13 too. I think with FF13 too, they're going to try and fix that. We'll see.
I have a question about 13.
Okay.
More specifically, the characters.
Yeah.
Which were the men and which were the women? I couldn't tell the difference.
Well, you could ask that about any game, I guess, right?
Yeah, but it's mostly true with 13.
I think they were just trying to blend it all. Because like everyone knew that Cloud was a pretty feminine character on his own, so they just such that like take that one extra step and actually make him a girl.
And it's a big deal in Japan, right? If you make feminine characters, your game will sell tons more. They won't even play a game. Like I think that was always the big thing with I know it's not Final Fantasy, but with Metal Gear, right? Metal Gear 2, we got Raiden because female gamers would not play Metal Gear. And I think that kind of, I think that kind of spreads out into the other genres, right? It is a really anime-based series, it's based on that style, and I think that you're always going to get these really feminine characters and whiny little boys and.
Then he got Jacked on the other hand. He was just a huge fan.
Yeah. Who here wants to beat Titus in the face?
Or Hope. Hope was horrible.
You can't, he's a ghost. Get over it.
Eventually you do a spine drunk game, but it is fun.
The name's Hope. Come on.
I named Tia's bitch when I played.
I know somebody who named him Eggroll. I don't know why.
Or when your brother named everyone Sephiroth in 7.
Pardon?
Her brother played 7 and named everyone Sephiroth, so when they were sitting around at the campfire, they were all just like, and then Sephiroth.
I like that.
What do you guys think of the idea that all the money is from Square Enix and that they're putting so much money into graphics and such now of the gameplay?
I actually agree in a sense because I felt that when I played every game from 1 to 10, it had a very good mixture of substance and style with it. They made they made technological breakthroughs, as he pointed out right over there, but they also kept to their original substance and style of the gameplay and also the character interactions and even just the feel of freedom that you can have in this Final Fantasy, which honestly actually was named because it was the final project that Squaresoft back then was actually making because they were in bankruptcy.
Yeah. Final Fantasy, and they released 13 more.
Not mention all of like the
yes, all
spin-offs. Except for Tactics, that was good.
Yeah. I think a big part of it is the producer leaving, right? After 10, he was gone, and I don't think anyone really knew what made a Final Fantasy game special at that point, right? If you look at like any documentary or anything they've put out since then, it's always like, oh, well, a Final Fantasy game has to have chocobos, it has to have someone named Sid who makes a wedge, but they don't really focus on the things that really made the old games great. And what's funny is Lost Odyssey, which the producer went on to make, it feels more like a Final Fantasy game to me than these recent ones have.
and the creators of Final Fantasy are creating a new game for the Nintendo Wii. It's called The Last Story.
Last Story, Lost Odyssey. I mean, it's all Final Fantasy, right? It's pretty funny how they name it, guys.
Aren't they releasing a new Nintendo console as well?
Yeah, but there's no question now for it.
Pushing off Zelda.
We don't talk about that. We don't talk about that.
I think it's funny, I'll ask now because I was in the panel last year and one of the things I know that people were weird about were any of the Wii games. Does that change? Does anyone here play Crystal Bearers or any of the downloadable titles?
None of those spin-offs
I've
whatsoever.
played Crystal Bearers. It's terrible.
It's a serious
Terrible. It's not a Final Fantasy game. I mean, it's kind of got Zelda gameplay.
It's not even Crystal Chronicles.
Yeah.
I love the Crystal Chronicles series.
Yeah, I feel like Crystal Chronicles is whenever they put something that they don't think will sell, but they know it's kind of RPG-ish, they just throw that on there so they can release it with some Final Fantasy name on there.
My life is You guys think the other spin-offs have been okay then? Like, I can see like Zach here probably like Crisis Core.
Yeah.
Crisis Core was good.
At the end, I honestly cried.
Everyone had better have cried at the end.
I
It was
knew-
like the saddest moment in video games.
You know what's gonna happen,
But we-
but like
but
you
we
still
knew it was
like
going to
you
happen.
go into
Yeah, but you didn't know it would happen so sadly. Ugh.
Well, it was already pretty sad in the FF7 version when it was just like Zack being this tall and being shot at the ground. But once they added rain and the music and the DMV fading away.
And then when you go back and play 7 after you beat Crisis Core, it's like that much sadder.
Because you realize that it's happening like less than 24 hours after.
And then like you get comments like his parents don't know that he's dead. Like 10 years later.
And Eris is still sending letters.
And she doesn't
No,
even
she
care.
doesn't even
She's
care.
like, I'm loud, I like you now.
Come on, 10 years later, when you honestly give up, like after 10 years, like I'm pretty sure if I had a boyfriend this guy, when I'm 24, I'm gonna be getting some deal.
Depends on the importance of
If it was loud, yeah, we do the same thing, but.
I don't know if it's Cloud.
What?
Maybe it's Sid or Vincent. At the same time.
A lot of people here playing Dissidia. Dissidia came out of right field for me. I was amazed actually. And it's funny because for the first little while it does strike you as kind of a typical anime fighting game, but it's so deeper. It's so much deeper, and I think they did a good step with that. I think they said it's over. Well, you know, they've said that the last one that came out, their 12, was the final one, but I'm sure that when the NGP comes out, they'll be revisiting it. Probably, yeah.
After playing through Dissidia though, like I had no idea what happened. I feel like the storyline for all of the characters are sort of the same.
Yeah, they were.
Like,
they can't really do much, right?
Once you read the secret reports or whatever, I think they'll build on the depths of the story for a lot more.
It's Soul Calibur from Final Fantasy, guys. I mean, like, what do you want?
Anything else you guys want to? Yep.
How do you feel about their inability to transfer their massive single-player success to multiplayer?
I think that 11 was pretty successful. Like, it's not WoW caliber, but it's 11 on its own is a pretty solid game.
In 14?
For 14. I think we all know how that turned out.
When your producer comes out and says, "I'm sorry, our game sucks," you have a problem.
All right.
And it's still free, right? They still haven't fixed it, so they're still letting you play for free, which is, I guess, the only way they can keep
console
people.
version comes out, then they're going to start charging again.
Yeah, exactly.
Are they making a console
Right
version?
now.
Yeah.
It's
I-
been slated to release like 2 months ago. Apparently it's not even out yet.
Yeah, they
so-
pushed it back when they announced it. It's they said we're going to wait till we fix the PC version. Yeah.
Yeah,
And then we're going to work on the PS.
I knew there was a console version of 11 because I saw the expansion pack in my local FYE, which is a video game, movie, and music store. But the thing is that I could never seem to find, no matter where I looked, even in the number of retro gaming stores that seem to be popping up in my home city,
11.
I couldn't find the console version.
For PS2, are you looking for? Is it?
No, it's
Xbox
I'm talking about Final Fantasy 11
Yeah,
for the Xbox 360.
Oh, just go to Amazon. You can get it for like $15. box.
You mentioned that they sent out a formal apology for Final Fantasy 14.
Yeah, pretty much. You want to expand on it, but
Yeah, they fired everybody who, well, they didn't fire, but they relocated everybody who was on staff for the original release or beta of Final Fantasy 14 and sent out a formal apology to everyone who had played it.
Wow.
Definitely not enough.
Definitely not enough. We should make Final Fantasy 14 free for what they did.
I still don't know how to set up FF11. I have the console version and I'm so confused. I just put it at PS2. I put it in and it's like
You need a hard drive.
menu,
Why is it just so weird? Final Fantasy 11.
Oh, yeah.
I have a question though. In Dissidio, why would they pick Shantoga when not Ronza? It bothers me to some extent.
Ramza wasn't dead.
Really?
Ramza wasn't active. That's probably. Like, I know that was a fan favorite. Like everybody wanted him in.
Blistered thumbs lied to me.
I have an interesting question for you. What do you feel about Final Fantasy as a whole itself from a philosophical point of view? Do you believe that as every game they tried to make it with a theme that was deeper and deeper through an emotional connection?
I think they try. I don't think it really comes across all the time, right? Like 13 was Let's Humanity was the big theme there, and and yeah, of course, all the stuff about propagation.
10 was like religious corruption.
And then, I don't know, it didn't, not knowing what, I just didn't really understand the whole Odyssey thing, because they don't know what they have to do, so how is that any different from not being Odyssey? Like, there's just the looming threat of, oh no, I might become a monster. Oh no, I might become a crystal. I'm screwed, aren't I?
Yeah, I think in their society, becoming a crystal was actually something that they wanted to do, wasn't it? Wasn't it like,
No, it can't be something where like
Next
I think that they're well when Sarah turned into a crystal, nobody seemed all that happy.
Especially
So what are your thoughts on 13-2? Anybody have any thoughts?
Not even worth touching, not even worth looking.
Like,
Yeah, what?
13-2, it's Square Enix going back to just Squaresoft roots. They have confirmed the towns and the world maps returning. So it's going to be a hit or miss when it's released.
I found that everything that has a 2, the 2 always sucks. Like Xenosaga, 2 sucked. I don't know if you guys know what I mean. Then 10, we aren't gonna go there.
I don't know.
Because they're boobs.
Watch the Spoonie reviews, you'll get it.
Oh yeah.
Like nothing that has a 2 is any good. The 2 is never good.
Okay,
Tales of Symphonia, Beyond the New World.
I like Breath of Fire too.
Dawn of the New World sucked.
No, it didn't.
Balls.
No, it did not.
Sucked donkey balls.
Hey,
Wow,
it wasn't
yeah.
it wasn't as good as the original, but I did enjoy it.
Emil is a woman.
Hey guys,
Yes, Emil is a woman. And he steadily grows a penis as the story
No,
goes
he
on.
doesn't. He only grows a penis because Richter keeps shoving his up his ass.
Yes.
Are all games with Jews in them bad?
No.
But Final Fantasy X2, I think, really put that expectation out there for people. Even though I love the gameplay, but it wasn't that bad. It's hard to get over everything else.
How do you say the title? Because I have heard some people call Final Fantasy X2. I heard some people call Final Fantasy X-2. I'm not sure who is right.
Anyway is
I
right.
want to just take a quick poll. Who calls it X2?
What's that?
A quick poll. X2.
Who calls it X2?
What about 10-2?
I say 10-2.
Yeah.
It's
Roman numerals.
anyway is correct.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird to say I like Final Fantasy VII.
So one thing I remember, being in high school, whatever, me and my friends, we were Final Fantasy fans as a whole, and the biggest thing that we were remembering was the anticipation of waiting for Advent Children, looking at all the trailers, and it's like, oh, you see the white sleeve in the wheelchair, who could that be, and everything.
Fucking didn't need the wheelchair. Fucking the wheelchair spotted me.
I know in the story with Final Fantasy, Advent Children fit pretty well, and everything connected. What do you guys think of the other Final Fantasy movie? what was it, Spirits Within?
Spirits Within.
I
Yeah.
liked it.
I'm sorry.
I liked it too.
They went for photorealistic before they could go for it. They went for photorealistic when they really, really shouldn't. Why Advent Children looks so good is that it doesn't go into the uncanny valley. It stays in its anime roots, but it does so. It's like right on the edge. It looks really real, but real in like an anime kind of. What they did with Spirits Within is they tried to go completely photorealistic before they had the technology, and it's just the eye, movement.
Photorealism aside, I refuse to even call that movie a Final Fantasy movie because, well, for one thing, it didn't feel like a fantasy. It was CG aliens. That's what it was.
Yeah, it was a
CG version of aliens. Aki was Ripley. That scientist guy was the one of the face huggers. I don't know. Anywho.
No, it's
I'm sorry. I just find it abysmal that movie was given the Final Fantasy brand name. I mean, even Final Fantasy Unlimited, as bad as it was, at least it deserved the Final Fantasy brand name because it had elements from the game in it.
Well, I agree with that. It's not. Final Fantasy is kind of one of the games that just it's always different. Just because something is completely different doesn't mean it doesn't deserve the name. It doesn't deserve. It's a horrible, horrible, horrible movie.
Yes.
There's no denying that. But the Final Fantasy game, the Final Fantasy brand, it's not like. And I hate to use this as an example, I really, really do, but it's not like Halo, where you wouldn't be able to make a big fantasy adventure with the name Halo, but you could make a big sci-fi adventure with the name Final Fantasy, because Final Fantasy games have gone from Final Fantasy 1, where it's just kind of like these towns, you walk from one to the other, and maybe an airship or two, to Final Fantasy 13, where everything is cybernetic all the time.
Well, if you think about the quote, the magic is just technology we don't understand yet. Technically, magic is sci-fi.
According to Final Fantasy VIII, magic is items. I have 100 fires in my pocket.
Yes.
They're junction to my attack stat.
I think that's an important part of it, though, is that movie came out after 8, right? And 7 and 8 started to move towards that sci-fi stuff, and I think they really just went all out.
True, but there was also that element of the unknown, that stuff that didn't have, that you couldn't explain happening was happening. With the Spirits Within, I didn't feel any of that.
Well, there was a spirituality behind finding those 7. Crap, I can't remember which one. The 7 like thingamajiggies. I don't remember, but like. No, there's like spirituality in that. Like the things were freaking ghosts. Like you can't explain ghosts. So I guess that's fantasy.
Well, they said the same thing about Xenosaga. Does that mean Xenosaga is a fantasy?
Yeah, in a way, yeah.
Well, technically
Like, where did the Gnosis come from? Like, what the fuck? They never explained the Gnosis. There were supposed to be 7 in the series, and they stopped at 3 because, well, they kind of went bankrupt after the Ziggy thing in Japan.
No, Final Fantasy, I wouldn't be surprised if they just changed the name to Final Sci-Fi in like the next 5 years. Because that's where it's going. Final Fantasy maybe 1 through 5. Main the fantasy, Final Fantasy 6, okay, yeah, Magitech, I kind of see it. Final Fantasy 7, oh crap, Final Fantasy 8.
You always realize their mistake, right?
Then Final Fantasy, oh wait, no, then Final Fantasy 9. Okay, Final Fantasy 10. Oh wait.
Machina.
And then Final Fantasy 11 stays there, Final Fantasy 12 back, Final Fantasy 13.
Final Fantasy 12 was like Star Wars with Final Fantasy.
Yeah, but isn't every Final Fantasy about a small group of rebels fighting against a giant emperor or an empire?
I've got a question. Who is your favorite boss? Like, final boss, like, out of all the bad guys?
Ultimo Weapon, I'm just kidding.
Kefka's always been my favorite. 6 always been my favorite game, so that's not surprise. Yeah, I love
Kefka. At the end of 9, Necron? Where the fuck did that come from? Like, can anybody explain Necron to me from 9? Like, what?
Kujo wasn't a cool enough boss, so they needed someone else.
Kujo was a woman. Like, he was supposed to be a woman.
I'm sorry, at least, no matter what Final Fantasy did, at least it's not like Metroid Other M where the final boss has nothing, and I repeat, nothing to do with the story. It's just this space monster that just happens to crash into the ship. I swear to God.
So, favorite bosses?
I don't want to be cliche, so I'm not going to say Sephiroth. Even though the Saber Sephiroth fight was pretty cool. Like, in watching Supernova for the first time.
But not by the 70th time, you're like, oh, come on.
Yeah. So I'm going to go with Ultimecia. Give me some time. I don't know. I like fighting Reaver. It was fun.
Yeah, she looks really cool when she's jumped in her Reaver.
Honestly, I recently just played through a low-level game in 8. Easiest game to play a low-level challenge on ever. I beat Ultimecia in 1 hit. Like, all of her forms. It was insane. If you just get cards, it's like the best thing ever. So I didn't see Ultimecia long enough to appreciate the battle, honestly.
I have an
It was
embarrassing
she was
Final
on the
Fantasy
screen
VIII
for 5
story.
minutes.
I got to disc 3 without ever changing my weapon, not to do it as a challenge, but because I was unaware of changing my weapon. I'm like, why is this game so hard? What am I doing wrong? Everybody's kicking my ass!
The first time I played 8, I didn't know how to jump shit until like the propagators. So I couldn't beat the propagators, so I just restarted the game.
But there were like 16 tutorials on how to do it.
I didn't watch tutorials.
Yeah, that's because you just skip through them because they're
Who
long.
watches tutorials?
I thought.
They're very helpful.
Tool.
Any questions?
What do you feel about grinding focused games like 3 versus like games like 8 that kind of are against grinding?
I think there's a balance. I felt 12 had way too much grinding in it, but yeah, I don't know. It's the kind of thing that really does drive me a little bit crazy when I just want to move ahead, but I understand, they just have to find a good way to balance the difficulty is the problem, right? If you can beat the game at a low level, that's cool, but if they force you to grind or else you're going to get smoked every single boss fight, then I'm not okay with that at all.
Well, if you're smart enough, they can probably take that boss at a low level. Like, that's why low level challenges exist.
I finished low level challenge on 12 because of the
That's always the variable. Oh, you can always beat the boss. You just have to be smart enough. You just can't be a lowly word. You have to be a very omnipotent god. And that's not everyone.
Yeah.
That's very few people.
Well, like, those games aren't for everyone.
Yeah, I guess.
Not that I'm like saying you're dumb or anything. But you can apply that.
Yeah.
Are we ready to revisit the final boss question?
Oh yeah, what's yours?
Oh, I don't have one yet. I missed one.
So, Dissidia Duodecim.
Weirdest title ever.
Yeah.
I thought they were talking about a part of my anatomy.
Yeah.
Like, duodenum and duodenum, it kind of sounds similar. That's what I thought they were talking.
It just makes me sad. Like, I know where Tifa's allure lies. But jiggle physics, really, Square Enix, really, and you had to turn Yuna into a D cup, really. This is what you had to do. This is what you thought was right.
It's interesting because in 10-2 she turns into Paris Hilton and she's like flat.
It's what the preteen fanboys wanted.
Yeah, it is.
I have a question as well. Do you think that Final Fantasy, the games itself, and series from 1 to 10 had, in a sense, a spirit of its own? Like, it was something more than just a game that you would just play for entertainment and all that. It was more like a piece of artwork that you could appreciate, a story that was really deep.
I don't know about all of them, but I think that some of them, 4 and 7 and 6 to most people, like they're the ones that epic the most.
I think what it was try, right? 9 and 10 did a great job of it. 7 and 8, I think it really comes down to how much you put it in.
I really think that's just. If I had to say the ones that the Final Fantasy 1 to 10 that meant the most to me, I'd do 4 and 6. 4, it just had I have a really deep fascination with the whole light and dark thing, and I really enjoyed that aspect of the story. And I was kind of sad that Zeron wasn't in Dissidia Duodecim. I think he had a place there. It just left. And finally 6. It's just there are no words. 6 was really good.
Best game ever.
One of them, indeed.
Well, since we're on before, did anyone play After Years? I don't care about After Years or.
I bought the game, but I haven't gotten around to it.
No, it came
playing it yet.
right?
Yeah.
Part of the complete collection. I think it did a decent job with it. I mean, it's obviously not doesn't live up to those original titles, but it was fun.
No, it does have the original. Oh, you're talking about After Years.
Yeah.
Of course, it was made for a cell phone. That's why I didn't play Kingdom Hearts Coded. It was made for a cell phone.
Yeah, but cell phones are more powerful than the SNES was back then, right?
Yeah, but okay, fair enough. But
No, Recoded is still fun.
all right, fine, fine.
Question. Question over there.
What do you guys think it would take to kill the Final Fantasy series?
13-2.
Spirits Within didn't do it.
14. Spirits Within 2.
Hey, I cried at the end of that movie too.
I cried
It was
too,
like
but for a
catharsis.
different reason.
I cried at the movie.
Spirits Within, they blew so much money, right? And the money got relegated to the back room. So
To be, I'm sorry, but I know I railed against the Spirits Within before, but to be a little bit fair, the DVD had a whole boatload of extra features. Even the ability for you to like edit scenes together to make like your own scene. The thing is that I think that the reason they included so many extras was because the movie itself did so bad.
yeah.
How good an editing software can you have on a DVD?
It was multiple DVDs, so.
Oh, all right, I guess.
What's your take on Square Enix sort of gravitating away from using Yoshitaka Amano as their sort of primary graphic designer? Like he had a huge influence on 1 through 6, and then the further they went. Like,
When did that start?
That's 7.
Seven,
When
yeah.
Nomura started designing. Does anybody prefer Amano's style over Nomura's? Some people probably
I
do,
don't
right?
care either way.
Well, I don't know. Amano has a certain. Amano's very hit or miss for me. Sometimes I look at his art and I just think, wow, that looks amazing. And there are also a couple of times where I'm like, yeah, it's the face. It's always the face. I'm a big fan of Amano. I think he's a really great artist. But I think it would be a shame to lose him as character designer because he's come up with practically every iconic Final Fantasy book.
Like I like Nomura's design at the beginning when it was cloud and such, but after a while, like all you see is the same belts and buckles and side flaps that everybody has.
If you get rid of Amano, you'll run out of palette swaps for the scene.
That too.
So I recently replayed through Final Fantasy IX and it was rather enjoyable, but I was just like noticing like how medieval it was, like the theme of it. And I was wondering like, do you think they might use that again in the future, or do you think Final Fantasy IX was a resounding success or failure?
Well, they went back. I mean, they tried to go back with 12, right? I mean, they didn't go all the way back, but it's always open.
What,
Yeah.
didn't 11 also, or 11 and 14 also go back to the whole medieval template?
Right.
11 wasn't really medieval. There was a lot of technology involved. Like there was magic, but there was no
Yeah, and 12 like included like guns, and Esper's is kind of different. But I mean like the main basis of having guns in 12, it was like
But look at the guns; they're kind of like old looking. They're
just classy guns.
If Balthier pulls out an Uzi, then maybe I'll agree with you.
Laguna, cough. Final Fantasy VIII, cough, gunblade, cough.
Something wrong with the gunblade?
No, it's
the
just
cheating
guns.
way of
Guns
making
go
a
back.
gun to a knife
Oh
blade.
no, wait! Final Fantasy VI, cough. Guns go way back in Final Fantasy.
Yeah, but so do airships, right? And that's what we've been saying. Airships aren't medieval.
If they were built by Sid. I am
Or
Sid
if they were
of
buried under the desert.
Dissidia, I am Sid of Lufe, and I'm important now, somehow. I don't know, I don't get it. Why? Why am I here?
I think the story behind the city is that the player is the omniscient god, Sid, who is being so much angry. Who is Carlin? Who is Cosmos' daughter or son? Who is somehow?
No, Cosmos has really nothing to do with the entire chaos thing. She's just kind of. I find it funny because Cosmos was just a goddess who happened to get like an antithesis in chaos who was made in a lab, which is weird.
Cosmos needs to put out for Warrior Blade. There, I said it.
Cosmos gets to put out for everyone.
No, she needs to actually do it.
Okay, alright, well, here's something that's going to make a good number of you just kind of say, wow. Veronica Taylor, the voice of Cosmos, is also the voice of Ash Ketchum from Pokemon.
I didn't know Veronica Taylor was the voice of Cosmos.
The original.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yep, it is. Found that out. Oh, and by the way, voice of Chaos, Keith David. Well, I love Keith David. He voiced Spawn in the HBO animated series. And it's the exact same voice. I'm watching it right now. I'm so happy.
Yeah, question over there? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if, I don't know, I'm kind of getting this feeling, based on the Final Fantasy games that have coming out of late, as in the past almost 10 years, do you think it might be time to retire the series and kind of start naming a new series of games, a new title, like move away from Final Fantasy IP and start calling them something else?
That's kind of like taking money and then throwing it in.
I know from a business standpoint it's kind of dumb, but you know, we're starting, we look at 14 and we it's a joke.
I don't think
it's not making
like
money.
maybe for like a game making point of view, but Square Enix is never gonna do that.
Yeah.
Final Fantasy is their biggest series next to Dragon Quest.
The question wasn't, do you think they will? The question was, do you think they oughta?
No.
From our standpoint.
Not really. I don't really see the difference. I just think they have to start making better Final Fantasy games.
I think it'll happen if Final Fantasy starts to like, if it starts to associate itself with the negative stigma, like if people start to associate Final Fantasy with like, yeah, then it might happen. But that's most a good example.
I don't think they could, and I think Lost Odyssey is the best example, right? Because to me, Lost Odyssey is the best Final Fantasy game to come out in the last couple of years, and it bombed, right? I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I don't know if it bombed, but it didn't do well. I wouldn't be surprised if Crystal Bear sold more. And I think that's saying something about the Final Fantasy name.
Let's get to the question at the back. Sure.
Okay, I just noticed when Squaresoft switched up to Square Enix, that's when we started seeing the decline in the games. Like 9 was, I think, the first Enix game, and that was just the entire homage to previous games. Then we had 10, which is just as linear as 13, believe me or not. Then we had 11, 12, 13. So do you think if Square Enix tried to go back to their Squaresoft roots for the next like Final Fantasy 15 or something, would it make a difference?
I honestly don't know if they could. I think they've lost so many of the key members of what made those old games great.
I also think it's the fact that they can't come up with any more, I guess you could say, omnipotent or powerful themes actually, more so than 10 did or even 9. They can't find any, I guess you could say, deeper meaning in the games than what they had already created in the past.
Looking back, there has to be, in my opinion, there has to be more than 13 philosophical games out there. And I don't know, Final Fantasy 1 through...
There probably are, but the question is, will we be able to understand it?
Yeah, well, I don't think the Final Fantasy crowd that plays Final Fantasy is exactly the dumbest of people, right, guys? I don't think a lot of it would go over many people's heads, but that's really in how Square Enix executes it. They could very well do the exact wrong thing and make it too difficult for us to understand. It all really goes back to the actual making of the game.
Back in the middle there?
Yeah. Okay. Which Final Fantasy do you think has the best music?
Oh, this is Spartan Riot.
Yeah, this is gonna start up some crap stuff. Do you just want to give an answer and not explain too much? Because people are gonna fight over it.
Just say it, don't
6.
justify.
That's 6.
Dancing Mad.
I'm gonna be cliche and say 7. Sorry, guys.
I'm saying 7.
Dancing Mad.
As well, I mean, as instead
Dancing Mad is longer than One Winged Angel. I win.
Because a longer song makes it a lot
Yeah, because it's
better.
compensating for something small.
Yes.
and
I can't hate on
Kefka has like 6.
Have you guys seen
Sephiroth
it?
has 1.
No.
Sarah.
Damn it, you're right.
Ah. He has like 4 on his legs alone.
No, he has like 6. He has like 6 on his back, and one of his legs is a wing.
No, one of his arms is a wing, and he has a couple on his legs. He loses his legs, and his whole torso, below his torso.
In
is
retrospect, this might not have been worth it.
He has 2 fucking
Now I'm just a
halos.
freak.
He has 2 halos. He's holier than Jesus.
Well then, okay.
I'm sorry.
I noticed that a lot of Sony fans were upset when it was revealed that Final Fantasy XIII was additionally coming out for the Xbox. Business-wise, it might have been the logical step, but do you think it was really necessary for Square Enix to switch to a 2-console game rather than a single console, which was pretty much their template for years?
Well, if you think about it, they re-released a lot of them for PlayStation. Like, they re-released 5 and 6 for PlayStation, so it was technically on 2 systems after that. And, like, one is on PSP, it's on, like, Game Boy, it's on everything, so, like, I don't think there's a problem.
Like,
Here's the thing,
if you're
though.
Square Enix, just think about the cost-to-benefit ratio. Like, what's the cost? The cost is losing, like, a bunch of fans, like, a few hundred fans, who are probably going to buy the game anyways.
No, I would anybody. It's coming out for the 360 Final Fantasy.
It's like, how hardcore do you have to be to boycott a game just because it's
Here's the thing, though. Final Fantasy, Square Enix didn't do that happily. You'll notice that Square Enix doesn't make Xbox 360 games. It just doesn't. But it's just they realize that, oh shit, we have to sell this in America, don't we? And a lot of people in America happen to have 360s. So, begrudgingly, I suppose, they realized that it wouldn't cost that much money to just convert the controls over to Xbox 360. It was, as he said before, it was very low cost. Basically, I don't see how they couldn't have made a profit, and they did. I don't know. It's just, I think it was the logical decision, and I don't think it's that much of an outrage that they chose to put it on the 360.
I think that decision was a product of the timing, right? When they announced that was when the PS3 wasn't doing that great. And there was, like, it was kind of an exclusivity thing, right, where all the exclusives were going cross-platform. Everyone, if you wanted to make a ton of money in the US, you had to support the 360 at that point. So I think, and remember, they didn't do that in Japan. You can't get a 360 version in Japan.
Yes, you can.
Can you now?
Yeah, they released it.
I did not know that.
Well,
international?
Yeah, they couldn't just not release it. Tales of Vesperia.
So the 200 people in Japan who have,
I have a 360. I have a 360. I have a PS3. I don't have a 360. Tales of Vesperia is on the PS3 in Japan, and I'm not allowed to play it. Ah! I just have to settle for Tales of Grace's F.
Summon Magic's always been like a big part of the series since like 3, so I was wondering what are your guys' favorite summons from the series?
Doom Train!
Doom Train was pretty cool.
Can't beat Doom Train.
Yeah, I've always liked the different Bahamut's in 7.
Yeah. It got weird after, 10? When he got the wheel on the back?
Yeah.
I like Shiva because she gets less clothing every Final Fantasy. I've been waiting for when we see it first.
Oh no, wait, you know what the weirdest summon was? It's just it's weird to like just the Leviathan summon in Final Fantasy. I don't even want to describe that. It was just weird.
But didn't Siren have less clothing than Shiva in it?
What?
Yeah, her hair was kind of her clothing, but...
So Shiva is Bayonetta?
No, that's funny as I
What do you guys think from Final Fantasy going from like an RPG type of game to just jump to Tactics and then Tactics Advance and then Advance 2? Was it a good move?
Well, I'm happy they at least called it Tactics, not like 11, which I wish was just called Online. And I mean, obviously, with the new 13s, we're starting to see it go into an action RPG now.
Gesundheit.
Thank you.
With Versus, so I mean, I'm okay with it. They need to try different things, but obviously I prefer the standard RPG types to the others.
I kind of like tactical RPGs. It brings me back to my Panzer General days.
I don't know. The reason I'm looking forward to Final Fantasy Versus 13 is that I'm really looking forward to going through a Final Fantasy story without having to go through the very extensive Final Fantasy gameplay. And there's nothing wrong with the Final Fantasy gameplay. I just think it'll be nice to just relax, maybe kick back, not have to think about what I'm doing so much.
It kind of died for me.
Yeah.
I want to know what you thought of the mini card games in the latter Final Fantasy games.
Triple Triad.
Triple
Did anybody understand the 1 in 9? Can anybody
Yeah, 9 I
explain
never really got
1
it
in
for me.
9
By that point, I was
I do not play Triple Triad.
I didn't understand it, but I won the tournament.
I turn monsters into cards and then I turn them into magic.
Yes,
I
that
am
was
truly a monster.
That cute little bunny.
Yep.
I don't know if you can still play
That
it
cute
now.
little bunny just turned into 5 fires.
I don't know if you can still play it now, but for a while, like I know when FF11 came out, you could play Triple Triad online. It wasn't Triple Triad.
They shut it down.
There's a
It was
Triple
an
Triad
idea,
like game that they sell now, so you can actually go online and play.
They're fun. They're fun cyclists, and they always try to do stuff like that. Do blitzball and.
What was your guys' favorite? I like.
I
I kind of like how they made it faster than
Blitzball, it has a third dimension of playability, except you can only stay in the center.
Who here can hold their breath for 5 minutes, honestly? And then they just sit there while you try and make your decision. Should I tackle him? Or should I just keep going? Or should I shoot?
Should I just wait and
If somebody
score?
tackles
Or
you
should I
underwater,
just score and then
you
go
lose your
behind the net?
breath. You can't keep going. If somebody tackles you underwater, you can't tackle underwater.
Maybe after 1,000 years they develop gills.
Maybe.
No, after I score a goal, just go behind the goal. Do that, you win. You just have to have the patience of a saint.
Me? Alright, do you ever think they'll close or finish the Final Fantasy VII compilation?
I hope not.
I hope we never see Dirge of Cerberus again.
Dirge of Cerberus 2! Somehow!
I think it'll end. It'll definitely end. I don't know if
Well, it has to end.
I don't know if they'll give us like a complete sense of closure though. It's like, even in Adventure, Dirge of Cerberus, it's all like, I will never be a memory.
I didn't understand
Even though
that.
it's probably was not.
I don't really understand what happened. Like, I do get that Kadaj merged with Genova, but why did that exactly... Wasn't the entire point of
You watch
Sephiroth's...
Pokemon Evolution. Just like Genova
Kadaj is evolving! Dude.
Don't press the green button! Shit!
Kadaj evolved into a Sephiroth!
I take that any day.
Do you think that they're going to actually remake 7?
Oh,
Because of this?
I forgot about this.
Alright, let's just take another quick poll. Who do you think this is going to happen eventually?
You know what's profitable, yeah.
When they're at bottom level, they're going to be like, alright, we got nothing left.
After 13 tanks.
Yeah, but I think that's actually a really good point. As a last minute, just kind of okay. We definitely have this. This is definitely going to make money.
Who
I would buy it. I
They'll
don't
be
care
able-
if it was just a money grab. I would
They'll
buy
be
it.
able to put a lot of money into it because they know they're going to get a lot.
Did
Do you think that... how do I say this in a good way?
Say a bunch of words of words.
Alright, I'll say it honestly. Do you think that do you think that once actually Squaresoft turned into Square Enix, that little by little and one by one they have forgotten their own people?
Yeah, I would say that, right? And I mean, from what I understand during the merger, they took a huge loss, right? Because of Spirits Within, they were really hurting, and Square Enix had a much higher stock price. So I don't know how much that influenced things moving forward. But obviously, shortly after they lost a lot of their talent. So
Here's another thing about Square Enix. They also have Dragon Quest to use as a crutch, and I don't care how unpopular Dragon Quest is over here.
Sad thing is they also have the rights
Japan
to
loves
Chrono.
them some Dragon Quest.
Sad thing is they also have the rights to Chrono series.
Right. But at least they're not doing anything with it with his both.
No, they're putting on a PS Store.
Oh,
which is good. The original version.
Trigger or Cross?
Trigger. Awesome. Yeah, Trigger just came out on WiiWare too, or what do you call it, Virtual Console.
Honestly, I just finished playing it. I can say it's like one of my favorite RPGs now. I just finished playing it like maybe a month ago because I got modded for my PSP, and so I was very happy with it.
I still look back to it, like when I was like 13 and I'd get into a random battle, or not random, but you know, when you run into a monster, I'm like, why am I going to a different screen now? Like, Chrono Cross did this so many years ago, versus Chrono Trigger, they could.
Go ahead in the back right, or your back left.
Yeah. I want to just go back to the 7 compilation for a second, and Genesis. Why? Why is he here? We already have a villain. We have Sephiroth. Why do we have Genesis?
Gact.
Yeah.
And he's hot.
To have an extra villain and
Sephiroth needed friends. Come on, guys. Sephiroth needed
He has
friends.
Angela. Angela didn't mind. Angela has no problem with it. Every time Genesis shows up, it's just like, go away.
And Genesis is supposed to be important. Get an entire war named after him. It's like,
don't remind
leave me alone, stupid pretty boy. And then he was in Dirge of Cerberus, the ultimate low.
Yeah, he shows up at the very end of Dirge, and it's like, yes, I'm still around.
Yeah.
Yes. Do you think they might come out with just the game of Blitzball?
No.
That'd be awesome. I don't know.
I want to see it played in real life. I want to see people drown and try and play this game.
Like, people can play Quidditch, why can't they play Blitzball?
Yeah.
But we can't fly. I want to see people drowning in a pool, dying because they've been tackled and their lungs have collapsed.
How do you tackle somebody underwater?
really fast. Push off a wall and then, I don't know.
Try to swim like a shark.
There are no walls in Blitzball. There's just a big sphere of
Well,
water.
maybe they can like put in like, I don't know, heavy things that like, I don't know. I'm not even going to try and understand what's called.
Okay, so we're gonna lock you in this box filled with water, and you're gonna play a game. No, this is not Saw. I know that sounds a lot like Saw, but trust me, it's not. This is supposed to be fun.
If they ever did release it, it'd be Chocobo Blitzball, right?
Yes!
How do you get a ball?
Oh my
to
god!
water?
Chocobo mini games! A Chocobo, like a Final Fantasy mini game.
That'd be awesome.
I would play that. I would play that.
Crazy motorcycle chase.
Have every one of the stupid little games from Final Fantasy, Triple Triad, Blitzball,
So basically,
all that.
the game.
Bunch of other stuff. Just put it all into one game and have it be like Chocobos and Black Mages and all the chibi little things and
Oh, Final Fantasy mini game compilation.
Yeah. And knowing Square Enix can start getting some mythology, complex characters, complex themes, deep
The
mythology.
Chocobo will secretly be God or something. Be the last member of the Ancients or something.
The games are actually part of a very, very cruel cycle game.
And simplicity.
Ruled by Choco Chaos and Chocobos.
Did you get excited when you saw the Final Fantasy VII PS3 technical demo?
Well, like, who didn't get excited?
Yeah.
We all saw it, we all thought it would happen, but...
I wanted to kill somebody for so long. That was really
They did the same thing with 8 for PS2, so I kind of expected that, you know, we would never see anything like it, but it was great to see.
It was the next best thing to show off the PS3, other than lying that their game screens were blue.
We only got 5 minutes left, so make sure I'm
Thanks. Any closing comments or questions that you can get through quickly? Do you guys have anything?
Yes.
Okay, what do you think was like the most outrageously unbelievable in Final Fantasy? Like I find Final Fantasy V itself is completely unbelievable. Like the fact that like dead people come like, oh, I'll help you and I'll reveal this dungeons for you.
It kind of seemed to me like The Young and the Restless, because the guy had amnesia and then he didn't remember his granddaughter.
Did Final Fantasy V even exist? I have this trouble, like, it hasn't really... Sure, in Japan, but here, the only reason anybody really knows about Final Fantasy V, other than really being associated with Japan, is Dissidia.
No, has anybody played the GBA remake of 5?
I played PlayStation remake of 5.
No, but the GBA remake had like a fantastic script. There were like Ninja Turtle references and Power Ranger references. Anybody catch those in
Oh no,
5?
Gilgamesh has the Power Ranger reference. Gilgamesh morphing time.
Yeah, and what's his name? That turtle, he references the Ninja Turtles. He's like, I wasn't just sitting here eating pizza for the last 1,000 years. But I just thought the script in that game was amazing. The translation was.
I'm so glad Gilgamesh actually says that when he goes to DX mode and go into Essence.
What was the question though? Was which one is the most unbelievable?
Like what's the most unbelievable?
For me, it's Tactics Advance. When you're trying to have a fight and judges are telling you no, you can't use this. That does it for me right there.
I think the snowball fight in the beginning pissed me off. Like, it was every teacher's dream to be like, ha! It does happen. There is ice in that snowball. Never happened in real life.
Or Final Fantasy 13, the number simulator.
Number simulator?
No, the battle system wasn't. Auto attack.
Oh, okay.
Auto attack.
Let's take the last question here.
Do you ever think they should go back to the original Tactics and make a sequel of that with Rams and Delita? And
Should go back to Tactics, the original Tactics. It's a sequel. Well, I guess we should wrap it up then. Guys, thanks for showing up for our panel at 10 a.m. Yeah, for sure.
Does anybody have a pen?